This movie has no joke opening.
No, but it has an iconic song.
It does.
The
It does.
soundtrack, what do you call Lux Eterna. That song was so iconic for the entire 2000s because it was used in every inspirational video. It was used in everything. And outside of O Fortuna by Carmina Burgina, I don't think there was a more iconic like soundtrack song until you start getting more into, your Pirates of the Caribbean and whatnot. But
exactly. What up, everybody? How you live? Welcome back to the Classics, the cinematic movie podcast that takes you back to the iconic films of 20 years ago on the big three. I keep saying big three on the platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and of course, iHeartRadio. I'm your guy Jan Lazo. With me, of course, is
David Andrew. How you doing, man?
What's up, man? This movie is. Before we get to the movie, I'm all right. I'm doing pretty good, man. I've been literally running around town for the last 2 days. So much has been going on in the last couple of days as far as trying to the employment stuff and just kind of staying up to flow with everything. But today was actually a rather pretty cool day. Things kind of happened in place the way they were supposed to. With that being said, on a more personal note, by the time this show comes out, we must scream from the heavens above, happy birthday to the head honcho, the CEO, the architect of this whole Beat Network thing. They got to give us fucking jobs. Big Los's birthday. By the time the show comes out, it will be Big Los's birthday. So on behalf of Back to the Classics, fellow, I love my brother. Happy birthday, Big Los, from you guys over here.
Happy birthday, Los.
Hey, love you, man.
I want us not to wish you a birthday, but sorry to be so disappointing to you.
Yeah, he's the only one that's, his birthday's coming don't tell me shit. I don't know. But, I love him dearly, Yeah. How was your week, bro?
Yeah, man, I'm still feeling it. It's only Monday as we record this, and I've only had one day off, and it was of course a short day off and kind of a quick turnaround, but I'm all right.
All right. I would say I haven't seen any movies lately, but guess what? None came out. So
yeah, to kind of kick off the news a little bit, Regal,
segue, right?
who is the second largest movie brand of movie theaters out here, has officially announced that they will not reopen their movie theaters, and they are postponed indefinitely, which is, of course, it's heartbreaking for us out here. Regal is the closest sentiment to myself, as that's only up the road here at Aliante. But it's heartbreaking to kind of see because no movies are dropping. No new movies are dropping. And at the same time, you can't really fault them on that, especially with the latest news this past week in politics with President Trump actually having COVID and then him not having COVID and then whatever, But here in Vegas, it's heartbreaking. A lot of these places are kind of checking that out. But I think it's important to note that AMC is still currently trying to show stuff, although there may be news on that changing. The West Wind Drive-In is still showing all new stuff. Don't forget, you have the place over on Rancho right by Meadows Mall. You can grab yourself a burger, and they show a few movies every day out there. So for those moviegoers who feel like they have the need to actually go out to enjoy, and I'm gonna give a little research to make sure I'm getting the name of that place out. But it's
it's no longer called Planet 51. It's called something else now.
Yeah, it's not called Planet 51 anymore. It's called I'll circle back to it, but go ahead and put in your thoughts.
You know what? when we talked about it before we went live, I can say that this is low sex now. I can say that especially here in Las Vegas, the scary thing is Regal Cinemas is about 80% of the theaters in the city.
Yeah,
So
a big part of the city.
it's a big part of the city. AMC, there's only literally like 2 AMCs in the whole city. So outside of that, you got Century. And after that, that's it. Or the drive-in. So it's definitely sad, dude. It's sad. Obviously, it's a sign of the times. But, it's one of those things to where, you don't quite know what's happening yet, what's going to happen next. They're pushing back movies left and right, no problem. I just read the other day that they pushed back No Time to Die to next year. It's so much happening, you know what I mean? It's not to mention cases in,
Dune was officially pushed back to October 2021. So
Dune's been pushed back. I'm pretty sure Soul is next to go. This will be the first time ever Christmas season comes. There's not a single movie out.
There is a rumor out there that Wonder Woman 84 is skipping theater releases and going straight to streaming, which, man, I really, as much as I would love to have something like that come through, and this is very unconfirmed. It's all a rumor. Like it's heartbreaking, at the end of the day. By the way, that burger place I was talking about, it's called Snappy Burger.
Snappy Burger.
Snappy Burger. It's over on Rancho 95. You can't miss it. It's where the old Dairy Queen used to be on the left-hand side. If you get to the Ford dealerships, it'd be on the other side of that. Can't really miss it.
I really do not like the name change.
I kind of like the Burger 51 feel.
It was more weird, you know what I'm saying?
They also, and to kind of promote Snappy Burger for free press right now, and now that this is happening, they do a couple of things. They do $1 comics over there. Of course, they have bottled drinks over there. Apparently, it's the burgers are supposed to be pretty decent from what I've heard, and they're really heavily promoting their Instagram right now. So definitely go check them out.
You haven't been yet?
I personally have not. Have you?
Yeah, me, Los, and Anika went one day. Just to check it out real quick, and it's quite the interesting setup. Essentially, it's 2 movies that they run during the afternoon hours that are a bit more. I wouldn't say they're family friendly or kid friendly. They're a bit more easier on the eyes, so to speak. But when the sun goes down,
I also know they do adult movies after a certain hour. Like
I want to say after like 7 o'clock they do. Or when the sun officially goes down, they do more adult stuff. I'm
pretty sure it's after 9 p.m. because they're really trying to push that like late night crowd coming out of the mall over there.
Right, but the actual operation itself is pretty dope because it's literally a drive-through. You pull up, and the burger's pretty good. They have this really good slushy that is fantastic. Popcorn's great, and then you pull around, watch a movie. And the movie probably run about 15 minutes each, so that's pretty dope.
There you go. Yep. We should definitely reach out to them, see if they want to maybe do a little note here with us. But yeah, definitely go check them out. Their IG page is literally Snappy Burger, so you can't really miss it. So it's at Snappy Burger, and go ahead and give them a little view. I know personally, I'll probably find my way up there relatively soon if I'm not in the mood to get Pop's Philly cheesesteaks, but because I love my Pops.
right down the street.
I love Pops. Other than that, a little special shout out because we never get to talk about rock music. Eddie is with deep condolences, unfortunately, that one of the legends of rock, one of the rock guitars, one of the best rock guitars of all time, Eddie Van Halen has passed away at 65 as of today. This news dropped less than 3 hours ago, so there's still a lot of information coming out. We know that he's been battling throat cancer for the last 5 years, and he finally came out with that late 2019 to kind of say that he's been dealing with it. So shout out to him. my childhood would definitely not have been the same without Van Halen's music to kind of plow me through. And I know, I'm a couple years older than Jay, but I mean, it's true. Like Van Halen was such a big part of my childhood that it's incredibly sad that when you think of one of the greatest bands of all time, and to think, I mean, this is a band that's had like three different lead singers, and all of them are considered legendary in their own right. So, rest in power, Eddie Van Halen. You will be greatly missed. Rock music hasn't really been the same for a long time. So, this is just kind of a little quiet way to kind of move on.
R.I.P.
All right.
All right.
Let's get into this super depressing movie. It's one of those movies that when I think of like movies nowadays that dropped, you know, Hereditary, the movie Mother, the movie Midsommar, you know, those are those kind of movies like that really uncomfortable feeling with it. The thing with those movies is that it's all based upon the supernatural or the rituals or whatnot. This is not. This is a movie that has affected millions of Americans and billions of people all around the world. And when I watched it again today, the last bit of this movie is some of the most disturbing pieces of cinema you'll ever watch. But you can really tell that the director definitely had his hands all over this movie. We're taking this back to, go ahead, because this is your part.
Taking it back to Requiem for a Dream.
Whoa.
That's right. It's going dark today. Original release date, October 6th of 2000. Shares opening weekend with Bamboozled, Bootman, Dancer in the Dark, Digimon the Movie, last week's movie, Meet the Parents. Was that last week? No, it was last week.
It was.
Get Carter and Tigerland. Production budget of $4.5 million with a box office total of $7.4 million. 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, and is nominated for 1 Oscar, and that will be for Best Actress for Ellen Bernstein. Bro, when I tell you the first time I saw this movie, I was so disturbed. And that's being light about it. Disturbed is a light compliment. You know what I'm saying? But then when you really sit there and you really take it in and let it like digest, this movie is it's horrifying. You know what I mean? It's there's no superheroes here. There's no scientific experiment here. There's
no good people in this movie.
There are no good people in this movie whatsoever. Even the people who are supposed to be good people, they're shit too. It's literally what the best way to describe this movie is watching an addict go through an addiction. Like, as it plays out.
I'll tell you why this movie is. I'll tell you why I even chose this movie when I did the schedule for this year. We had too many happy movies. And some of the best cinema comes from movies that aren't happy at all. This movie is one of those movies that it sticks with you. You can't get the images out of your head. Think of every disturbing movie that has been good, like just been good, and think of like how disturbing they are and how you just can't get the images out of your head. I'm talking One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know, especially towards the end when Nicholson gets lobotomized. I'm talking A Clockwork Orange. I'm talking, you know, Requiem for a Dream definitely finds its way into that conversation. Disturbing movies are hard to watch because are hard to watch in a real sense because you're finally getting that like notion of sometimes this is literally what people hit on, and it really helps to where its setting is located, which is Brighton Beach, Brooklyn. And the reason why I say that is because Brighton Beach has always been known as kind of like this bubbly little place. Coney Island is kind of shown as like this fun little place, but it's like for many Americans and many people around the world, you know, paradise isn't always what your setting is. And I really have to applaud Darren Aronofsky, who this is really the introduction to a lot of people to Darren Aronofsky for taking such a disturbing material and really turning that into something that was it. I'm not going to say it's rewatchable. Believe me, watching this a second time was even harder than watching it the first time.
Ever?
Yeah, I've only seen it twice. This is my second time ever seeing it, and watching it that second time, it was incredibly difficult. But Aronofsky was a master in this movie, and a lot of it is because of his highly stylized direction, the music that he decides to do this, and every little piece of it is just building up the tension to that kind of, there's going to be a train wreck at the end of the day. So there's going to be a train wreck. So how's it going to end?
Right.
But go ahead. Give me one second. Go ahead.
All right. For me, this movie, Dave said he's only seen it twice. I've seen it, including today, 5 times. And it doesn't get better with each viewing. It does not get better. But for me, the thing about it is, I happen to knew heroin addicts.
So have I.
Yeah. But I've never seen them go through such a horrifying place in their addiction to where you're literally living out a nightmare. This is a nightmare, and it's sad. I mean, it's so fucking sad.
When we were kids, the big thing that was in the 90s and kids schooling and trying to get away from this was DARE, right? Was the DARE program. And the DARE program was a good idea in terms of trying to get away from the idea of drug abuse and drug addiction and whatnot, but it never hit at home. I remember there was a movie that they used to show that was very effective. I can't remember the name of the movie, but basically this guy goes and he only hits a joint, which is, again, weak, as opposed to, again, you only want to show so much disturbing imagery to children. But they had like cast from Disney movies, they had cast from TV shows, come in and try to pull this guy out of it. And I kept, from anything from the DARE program, that was the thing that I remember the most. So for myself, when looking at this through adult eyes and seeing Requiem for a Dream, now in my 30s, and seeing what this imagery does for you, it resonates, it sticks. It's something that you'll never look at an old refrigerator that rumbles, for example, in a positive light again, because you can't get some of the imagery that happens in this movie.
It's crazy how you brought up DARE, and I'm telling you, even before the movie came out, and well after when this movie came out, I've always viewed programs like DARE as almost like way before its time. Because when you think about it, when DARE was like we were kids, we were elementary school, you know what I'm saying? Like, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, whatever. But even as kids, unless you are directly exposed to these certain things, I can't think of, well, I can't speak for everybody. We were exposed to marijuana as young children, but marijuana is not that kind of thing where people just go apeshit them. But to know that these hardcore drugs, like a heroin or pills or whatever, and what it does to you. We didn't pay attention as kids because I've never seen shit. I've never seen shit a day in my life. So what?
Exactly. So, but do you remember? You remember that little short video? It was maybe 25 minutes long, where it's the cartoon, and like the cartoon has this guy who's like a third baseman for the Giants, something like that, and like the Mickey Mouse is in it, like Donald Duck is in it, and they're kind of bringing in all these people from all these like kids TV shows, and for some odd reason, like it stuck with you how disturbing like it was at that point, because I remember nothing else from the Dare program outside of maybe the mascot, which was a lion. That's
or the theme song, Dare to keep kids off drugs.
I don't even remember that. That's how.
Oh, it must have been an LA thing. Sorry.
No, I don't even think it's an LA thing. I know it was pretty much like worldwide how it was, but man, like I just every time it's like this vintage 1990s like nostalgic cartoon that I can't remember what it is, but it was so disturbing it was so disturbing. It was so disturbing, to watch it that it resonated with you. This is what Requiem for a Dream does for me. So let's get into this movie. We don't necessarily want to spend too much time talking about the movie because there's a lot of kind of philosophical thinking that's kind of going on. Because
for this, we figured we would do something pretty standard to what we do, but kind of put more focus on the effect of everything. You know what I'm saying? And you'll actually, that's the first person that you're going to touch on is Ellen Bernstein's character, and you have characters like Ellen Bernstein. These people really exist.
Yeah,
characters like Tyrone, characters like Harry. These characters really exist.
Yeah,
and you're really watching them. You're really watching them at their wits' end, just looking for the next hit. And we're going to address certain scenes that are just fucking so hard to watch.
Most times when Hollywood does movie about drugs, it's to kind of like it's not really to like poke fun at some of the horrifying effects of it. Instead, it's more like okay, this could seem really cool. For example, Wolf of Wall Street is a great example of it, because Wolf of Wall Street literally takes the idea of Quaaludes, which I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not sure if I was even paying attention in drug class when they even talked about Quaaludes. And the Quaalude scene with Donnie was hilarious, but then you get the Quaalude scene with cerebral palsy stage, and it's like that's horrifying, but you're still kind of laughing because you're looking at just the great acting. Most times Hollywood movies, when it comes to drugs, celebrates it.
Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely right.
This movie does not. The only other movie that I could think of where they literally take drugs in a bad way is A Beautiful Boy from 2018. That's it. The rest of them, they're all for him. They all like leave him.
I mean, really, you look at movies like how you mentioned, Wolf of Wall Street, movies like Go,
all the Cheech and Chong movies. Yes. Yeah, it's marijuana. No, it's not. It's marijuana, but back in that day, marijuana was seen as like this bad thing, and now, there's been much better research, and people enjoy them.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and all that. It's like a
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Talk about LSD, and everybody's just like, "Yeah, man, actually, this seems pretty cool." And it's like
I'm down to take that ride. Like, no, I'm not.
It's like, okay, so finally when it came to like heroin, like Requiem was like, no, please do not do this. So to get into this,
You can't make heroin fun. No matter how you spin it, you can't make heroin fun at all.
So
it's sad when you look at it.
This movie kicks off with that. This movie kicks off with this whole scene with Harry, played by Jared Leto, as he's trying to steal his mother's, Ellen Burstyn's, TV to pawn it for drug money. And apparently, this was repeated behavior. This was behavior that he was so well known for doing that Ellen knew the pawn shop he was going to be taken into, and wound up paying back the pawn shop owner, who's played by help me out here, the guy from I'm gonna blow
Mark
it.
Margolis.
It might
No.
be Margolis. Mark Margolis, who plays who plays Hector Salamanca. And it's just repeated behavior. And as like the argument is kind of happening because she knows what's going to happen, the music kind of starts bringing in that tension again. If you're hearing Luxa turn into the it's continuously right. It keeps building up this slow tension throughout the movie that you're just like that you're not entirely sure you're not entirely sure where the movie's going to go, because you're so used to seeing movies that for the most part have they don't have a somber ending. This movie absolutely does. It definitely has everything that you could hope for that Aronofsky does. For example, he comes in and he does the rapid quick cuts. Okay, so when he's showing the actual process of taking the drugs, he's going in and he's breaking down the compound formula, and you're seeing it like put down, and then the little dollar bill is sniffed up, and then it's boiling, and then you're getting the eye dilation at the end. Give me one second.
Do you think it's kind of almost like the movie is designed for you to get high with them, so you feel that high that they're going through, and it's scary, dude. Like if anything will push you off, if anything in entertainment media will push you away from drugs, primarily heroin, this movie's gonna do it, because the actual insertion of said needle, the actual sniffing of said whatever that is, the eye dilation. I mean, like that looks like a horrible ride I don't want to take at all.
Right. And this has Aronofsky's stamp all over it, because you're getting the 2-for-1 shots that he uses quite a bit in this movie, especially towards the beginning, where you're seeing both Ellen Burstyn on one side of the wall and Jared Leto on the other side conversing. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing the reactions from both of them both at the same time. This also happens when you get the introduction of Marion, or Maid Marion, played by Jennifer Connelly, as you're seeing this demonstration of the relationship between the two characters, and it's a very codependent bond of Harry and Marion. But the fast-paced screenwriting and a lot of like frenzied dialogue in this movie kind of makes you realize that you're really trying to get this perspective coming from a drug addict's idea. So as this movie kind of starts, Harry's obviously a drug addict, along with his friend Tyrone, who's played by Marlon Wayans, and his girlfriend Marion. The three decide to traffic heroin in a bid to realize their dreams. For Harry and Marion, they plan to open a clothing store for Marion's designs, because Marion is actually an immensely talented clothes designer. For Tyrone, he wants to break out of the ghetto and get approval of his mother. So Sarah, who is played by Ellen Burstyn, gets a call that she's been invited to her favorite game show, which I can't really say. You couldn't really tell that was a game show for a long time, until you start getting like towards the end of it, because it almost seemed like an infomercial. I thought it was an infomercial for a little while, until the end. Right.
Christopher McDonald can never, ever host any kind of game show around me. You're creepy.
Not for this movie. So when she gets this idea to go on the game show, and she's been invited to do so, she lives a very lonely life, this very, very sedimentary life. And that's the other theme with this movie, that part of the dream is how that part of the theme is how drug addiction affects people in a small period of time, and how and how people will do anything to pursue and get that dream. It doesn't matter how you get to the end. It's just a matter of how you finally get to the dream itself. For the case of Sarah, her dream to go on this game show, since she's been so lonely after after her husband's passing, she decides to kind of start dieting. And one of the funniest lines in this movie, it's hilarious. She goes and she's like, "Oh, I'm on the what was it? The grapefruit diet, right?" So she had like a grapefruit and then something even smaller and black coffee, no sugar, right? Which is a pretty restrictive, crashing diet for that. But she wanted to fit into this red dress that she continues to dream of, and she can't. She can't fit in the red dress at all. So she gets kind of this contact information for a doctor, but one of the things that she does is literally these group of girls is just hanging out, and they're like little beach chairs on the sidewalk, kind of bullshitting. And she was like, "Oh, I think this diet's really going to work for me." And they're like, "How long have you been on this diet?" She's like, "Well, since 1 p.m." And they started laughing at her because they know how tough, especially at that age, how tough those diets can be. So, at the advice of a friend, Sarah visits a physician who prescribes her these amphetamines to control her diet. And you want to talk about like when you think of drug addiction out here now, and especially when you think of like today's politics, back in the 80s and 90s, what was it? It was cocaine. Everybody had a problem with cocaine. Everybody back then.
Back then we were talking
cocaine,
coke, we were talking heroin, obviously. We were talking
and marijuana.
Basically, those like your main three.
Those were the big three that they were really pushing to get on. So your TV shows from Narcos, your TV show about Narcos, or anything from the Colombia drug trade, they were all talking about that stuff. However, in today's society, and things that have killed, nationally known names like Heath Ledger, pills becomes one of the fastest growing epidemics that's growing out there, because everybody thinks that they're there to help until you become dependent on them, which is exactly what happens to Sarah.
Today's format is like various forms of pills. We live in Las Vegas, so today's format is painkillers. Then you got the harder shit like Molly's, and you got the somas, and you have so much stuff that come in pill form, and that's just the pill part of things. You still have crystal meth. Cocaine is very much still around. You have all these things.
Right. It's the opioid crisis is what we're basically talking about now. Mm-hmm. Weird how 20 years ago you can honestly see how easy it was for Sarah to get a hold of all these amphetamines, and suddenly turn that into something. And at first it kind of looked pretty remarkable. She was up and moving. She was moving around quite quickly. She was definitely on uppers. Moving around, cleaning her house. She cleaned her house like obsessively almost, which is fine, except she continued to build this dependency on them. And she begins to lose weight rapidly. At one point in the movie, claiming to Harry how she lost 25 pounds. Still can't fit into her dress, but she lost 25 pounds in a short period of time. This movie also does a good time and give you an idea of a time frame of how everything went to shit for them, because this started in summer. By winter, this story culminates. So this is a 6-month period that they're talking here.
Right.
So
are we at the where Tyrone goes to the shootout?
we're getting right there. So Harry, when he sees that she's showing signs of drug abuse, and part of that is from the fact that she starts chattering her teeth for whatever reason, and he basically implores her to stop taking the amphetamines. But Sarah insists that the chance to appear on television and the increased admiration from her friends are her remaining reasons to live, because she's alone. She's lonely. She doesn't have a husband anymore. Harry, for the most part, is with his girlfriend all the time, and Harry's clearly lying to her, because he's saying that he's in distribution, which is wrong, I guess. He's just not in a type of legal distribution. So Sarah insists that with these chances, it has to be coming true. She becomes frantic, waiting for the invitation, and begins to increase her dosage, which causes her to start developing amphetamine psychosis. And we're going to touch on that. We're going to circle back to that, but getting into the Tyrone shootout, and to kind of set the stage real quick, because I'm sure Tyrone is obviously the one Tyrone has become kind of this distributor already for somebody, right? Which it was always kind of weird how that relationship was. Right. And it looks like good things are coming to him, because he's making some serious money with this. So go ahead.
I believe Tyrone's plug was his cousin, right?
Yeah, it was a cousin that was deaf, right? Because he's talking to him through sign language.
Right. Tyrone, he gets caught in the shootout between drug traffickers and the Sicilian mafia, of all people, and is arrested despite his innocence. Harry has to use most of their earned money to post bail. So this way you kind of see the trajectory of things kind of take a dive, right?
Right. And on the up and up at this point.
Right.
There is money.
Right. So, sorry, I'm sniffles. Sorry. The local supply of heroin becomes restricted, and they are unable to find any to buy. Eventually, Tyrone does hear of a large shipment coming to New York from Florida, but the price has doubled, and the minimum purchase is high. So Harry encourages Marion to engage in prostitution with her psychiatrist.
Before we get into that, we got to talk about how this shootout actually happens. Not the one that gets Tyrone in jail, but the one that happens basically afterwards. Because as Harry and Tyrone go up, first of all, they're in like a Piggly Wiggly's or something like that. And
yeah.
Okay, fair. They're at this. They go through the back docking. And through this back docking, they have a shitload of people just kind of waiting in the back there. And this truck kind of pulls up, opens up, and this guy's just distributing, no problem. He's getting the money, he's putting whatever, taking the money, and then just doing whatever. Of course, when crowds of this size are not controlled or being dealt with, bad shit tends to happen, especially when it comes to something like heroin. In this case, what happens is that a guy pulls a gun and decides to try to shoot it in the air, whereas the bodyguard turns his machine gun on the crowd and begins unloading on the crowd. It's not known if anybody would, but it's just it's insane to suddenly just see this just start happening in the middle of a Piggly Wiggly's docking bay.
This is Sicilian mafia, Dave.
When I was 19. So to see that was just this incredible imagery. So, of course, Harry encourages Marion to engage in this prostitution with her psychiatrist, Arnold. And it's so disturbing to see the scene, because...
Wait a minute. As disturbing as it is...
It's bad.
There's one key line that will never leave my brain for as long as I think about this movie. And we'll get to that momentarily.
Oh, God. I know the line that you're talking about, too. So...
Not only is the line crazy, what follows up after that is, oh
Marion's
my God. My eyes bled. It's so gross. It's sweaty. Ugh. Go ahead. Sorry.
Marion Psychiatrist is played by Sean Gillette, who's probably best known for the award-winning Pi. As
another Aronofsky flick.
He was also an Aronofsky flick as well. And he already looks creepy enough when he finally like shows a proposition and he like takes his hand out, places it over hers, and see like her own little psychosis because she's getting strung out from not having heroin,
right?
And starting to get a little bitchy about things, and you know when it finally gets to that point, the minute she takes off her top and it's just her and her bra, he just like he almost lunges at her like going straight for the neck, starts like kissing up on her, and it's just you're sickened. You're sickened out by it, but at the same time, that's kind of I don't want to say that's the price she paid. That's the price she was willing to pay to get this. So they finally get some money, but of course, because of the shootout, they weren't able to kind of get this. So to get whatever. So instead, eventually, Tyrone hears of this large shipment coming from New York to Florida. And obviously the price has been doubled, but they decide to go ahead and start thinking of making this trip. Meanwhile, Marion is having severe withdrawal symptoms, and what was once kind of like a drug-related love, you know, showing that they cared for each other and whatnot, has really strained both Marion and Harry at this point, to the point where Harry decides to give her a number and says, this guy is willing to give you dope in place of pussy. And that's what it was. We're going to get to that in a second, because I want to circle back, because again, we're all going to get to how everybody's story ends in this. Sarah's increased dosage. So now moving back to Ellen Burstyn, increased dosage of amphetamines has distorted her sense of reality to the point that it's just awful. She's hallucinating.
She's losing her mind. Yeah.
By the host and crowd from this TV show, and she's attacked by her refrigerator. Now, I know that sounds silly reading that. I know that sounds silly hearing that from me, but it was kind of frightening, because at first you'd hear this like lunge and like this doom, doom, doom. And it's like, okay, you know, she's hallucinating, but it's terrifying to see this fridge creepingly getting closer to her, like it's the fucking Little Shop of Horrors plant, just creepily getting there, you know, until it finally attacks, to the point that when she finally has her final breakdown, because all she wants to be on TV, is that it opens up its mouth looking like it's going to lunge at her. So she decides to go to the hospital. Correction, I'm wrong. She decides to go to the TV station that she's awaiting for her note from.
Right.
From there, she's taken by FDNY police to a hospital, and the hospital at first tries to basically feed her because she hasn't been eating. She's dropped so much weight. She fits in the red dress now, but she's not even taking care of herself, and she's starting to sound like an absolutely insane person. You know, do you know if this train gets off on Madison? As she's screaming at other people on the train, and eventually gains to the point that she's admitted to a psychiatric ward where she fails to respond to the various medications. And instead, they said, well, one of the things that we can try, it's a little bit more experimental, but we hear that ECT has some success with this. For those of you who don't know what ECT is, And Aronofsky is banking on you not knowing this. He's talking about electroconvulsive therapy.
Yep.
And it's terrifying because you see her lay down. Mind you, this is now going quick between several different stories all at the same time. Because you see because you see the plugs go right to her head and shoot into her, and she looks like she's about to break whatever gag that they put into her mouth because they shoot into her about 4 times to the point where she's basically catatonic.
So at this point now, we're now watching this happen to her, all the while running simultaneously with.
Right. Which I'm only breaking this down in this format just so everybody can kind of get the wrap up of everybody's story. Because Sarah's story literally wraps up with her in a fetal position, thinking that she's going back on TV, but she's in a catatonic state. She's a vegetable at this point. And it's already horrifying to kind of see all that happen without knowing what happens to the rest of them, because then it turns to Marion. And as Marion goes and is suffering withdrawal symptoms, she decides to go and first meet up and decide to call the number. And the number goes immediately to a guy by the name of Big Tim, who's played by none other than Keith David, who becomes her pimp. And plain and simple, it's disturbing. While he does show gentlemanly like qualities a little bit, he goes, "Maid Marian, I'm Little John." It's just so disturbing. And the first time, he comments about how white girls give better blowjobs than black women, and proceeds to have her do that. But she gets her fix. Once her fix is done, she decides to call again, this time all dressed up, and he decides to take her somewhere else. And Jay, I'm going to let you take over that story.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
This scene,
I
don't care. Every time I see this movie, you see this movie twice. I've seen this movie 5 times now.
I don't know how you could watch it 5 times.
Well, I try to. This is a shit excuse. I try to kind of appreciate it for the performances.
Okay.
Subject matter is I can't do. But this scene is so disturbing because he takes her to this basically this freak show horror house kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of appear to be Wall Street dudes in suits, and they're all hooting and hollering. Yeah. The visual of it all is just weird, right? Mind you, also at this time, what's going on with Ella Marissa's character again?
She's the one getting the ECT at this point.
Right. That's happening. Tyrone and Harry are now in jail.
We'll talk about them in a second.
Oh, cool. After this is happening, she's doing the absolute most for these dudes. I mean, and these men in here are the most vile, disgusting sons of bitches ever, right? And it gets down to
there was no black guy in there outside of Keith David. You could say black. everybody got said that's not my cup of tea, bro. Sorry. Not even mine.
But the part that stands out the most on this scene is literally her and another chick.
They're naked.
Looks strung the fuck out completely.
And they're naked.
And they're both naked. And so the chick goes, What do you want us to do next? And then the most sleazy term in the most iconic moment in this movie.
This Ted Turner looking motherfucker.
Fucker goes ass to ass. Almost immediately, the camera shows the guys, yeah, ass to ass. And immediately goes back to the chick who's lubing up oh my God, this might be disgusting. This is gonna be so disgusting. And the place doesn't look sanitary. It just looks so bad. and it's the most disturbing 30-45 seconds, just that particular part, and it's
Right.
so.
Because you literally get them ass to ass. While you don't technically see penetration, it is so heavily implied.
You know what's going on.
You know what's going on.
You know what's going
And let's be fair to Aronofsky here. He doesn't hold anything back on these sequences.
on. Right.
It's nothing is implied. Nothing is like, oh, this might happen. No, it's happening. It's happening there and it's happening right now. And you're about to watch it because you paid for this. Finally, we get to Harry and Tyrone's story. And I'll take Harry's story. You take Tyrone's story.
Actually, you do both, actually. Because I really want to do the ass to ass one. So go ahead.
As they begin this drive to Florida, they get 600 miles away outside of New York when Harry begins really heavily complaining about his arm. And he decides to pull up his arm, and his arm has become infected, gangrenous, with an open wound in there from all the needles that he keeps putting into his arm. And he decides to kind of get himself off that high again and decides to shoot up one last time. In the wound, they show it. It's, oh God, that was already disturbing enough. Tyrone says, hey man, we got to get you to a hospital. So they go to the hospital, and the doctor, who's played by the professor from the first Spider-Man, which I thought was hilarious. The doctor goes and he goes, all right, what are you in here for? And he goes, I'm here for, he's like, I'm here for my arm. My arm really hurts. Shows the arm. The arm has somehow gotten worse.
Yeah, like overly infected now.
But because of it, and realizing what they're doing, realizing the situation, they both become arrested at this point. They get arrested, and while waiting and while waiting at this detention place or wherever it is, you get this guy who decides to just be racist, to Tyrone, like drops the N-word, and smacks him with a club. Meanwhile, they look right at Jared Leto, looks at his arm, they go, oh no, you can't, there's no way you can work. We're gonna have to fix you up right there. And you get this crazy scene because it's now flipping back between all four of them. You're getting the ass to ass, you're getting the ECT at the same time. Tyrone is just kind of like digging or pumping or shoveling something, right?
I believe it was some sort of a pudding or something.
It looked like a giant vat of pudding.
Yeah, like some sort of pudding, yeah.
And he's over here and he's like getting sickened out by him, winds up like throwing up. Meanwhile, you cut to Harry where they go and they show Harry, and immediately you see the saw go right into the arm as they go and decide to cut off his arm.
Oof.
I'm gonna say this. I like watching horror movies. Because for the most part, they're fun for me. I don't know if I'm even going to watch something nearly as disturbing this October than I watched seeing the culmination of those four scenes. I was plugged away. People were trying to talk to me, and I wasn't having it. No, I can't turn my eyes away from this because that's how disturbing it is. This movie ends with all four of them in whatever positions that they are, deciding to go into the fetal positions. Harry's emotionally distraught by the knowledge that Marion is not going to visit him. Marion returns home and lies on her sofa, clutching her latest score of heroin and surrounded by crumpled and discarded clothing designs that she has. Sarah imagines herself as the beautiful winner of the game show, while Tyrone thinks back to his mother and how he wishes for her to be proud of him, crying in his prison bed, or actually it's a rehab center. It would be a rehab center at this point, because of how the beds were set up there. Crying his eyes out, in the process. And Sarah finally imagines herself as this beautiful winner with Harry, married and successful, arriving as a guest, and Sarah and Harry lovingly embrace. And that is literally how this movie ends. It does not end on a happy note. It does not end on a note where you kind of have hope for the future for them. You have Harry, who has his arm amputated. You have Sarah, you have Marion, who is well deep into the game. You know, Sarah's in a vegetative state, and Tyrone may be the only one that may wind up getting out of there in a decent state.
Right. To kind of serious it up a little bit, when I watch this movie again, you know, everybody knows last year, one of my childhood friends, Mark Quaz, he passed away, and watching Tyrone go through what he's going through, I couldn't help but to think about my friend and what he was possibly going through at the time. And the craziest thing is, like, no matter what your vice is, no matter what you turn to for an outlet or a release or whatever, at one point, does your body tell you, or does your mind tell you, this is officially an addiction, and I need to get off this shit? You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those. It's one of the things that just plagued my brain, because it's just like, who makes that call? Is it the body or is it the mind? But if the body makes the call, you may not survive that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, and this is probably one of the reasons why at this point now, I will probably never watch this movie again. Granted, I love this movie. I think this is a fantastic main movie. It's horrifying. This is a horror movie with no serial killer.
Yeah, and in the end of 2018, a friend that I had known for a long time, who for some time looked for me to kind of help her pull herself out of that game. Finally, her body gave out to the abuse of meth and heroin that she had done to it. And I always tell people she was still one of the smartest people I've ever known. She outclassed me on certain things that happened. And she passed away in December of 2018. And, I still think about her from time to time, not because I knew her before she got deep into it. I knew her before she really started to go down that very lonely and heartbreaking path. And it's tough for me. It's tough for me sometimes to really talk about her, because this was a person that every single time, she would seek me out for help, really. Because I was one of her closest friends. Like it would drive me down this real dark path with her. And it was something I wasn't necessarily very proud of, but at the same time, I was trying to find out the best way to make it work. And the bottom line that I'm trying to basically get to is that drug addiction affects a lot of people all around the world. I know plenty of people that become affected by it. I know plenty of people that deal with it. And, I know some people that have a sort of peace with it also, but it definitely affects people all around the world. And I would never wish upon my worst enemy any of this to them. And that's definitely a message that this movie kind of tries to relay. And I'm not trying to do this as like a PSA. That was not the reason, the point for this movie. It was literally on the schedule. But yeah, like it's.
But ultimately, you can't overlook, people that
You can't sweep it under the rug.
we grown up with we love that aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
So I would say to kind of get to, since we jump into takeaways, I would say if you are, talk to the center folks out there, if you are in fact struggling with substance abuse, no matter what that substance abuse is, there's always somebody out there that can help you. If you know somebody that is dealing with some sort of a substance abuse problem, some sort of a substance addiction problem, reach out to that person. Because the worst thing you can, the worst feeling you could possibly get is when you probably had a shot to help that person out, but it was too late.
When you wait
And
that
for me,
too late.
and for me, unfortunately, when my boy passed away, it was too late because I didn't even know he was even on what he was on until he was gone. You feel me? So check on your people. If they're going through something, check on them. But all right, takeaways, bro. Danger F, let's give you that guy award.
Man, that's tough.
Who's that guy?
This may be my hardest takeaway that I've ever had to do because everybody in this movie, this isn't like he got game. He got game. You still found something in Jesus Shuttleworth, for example, to appreciate, or you have found something in Denzel to appreciate. This is probably the toughest one. I guess I kind of have to give it to Jared Leto a little bit because in my eyes, this was the introduction for a lot of people, unless you really like Prefontaine, to Jared Leto. This was Jared Leto before 30 Seconds to Mars. You could tell that he genuinely wanted to get out of the life a couple of times, or at least he wanted to warn people, don't go into this life that I'm in. This path really isn't for you. Unfortunately, he realized, he realized too little too late because of it. The least I can say is at least he still has a life because of it.
True. That's your one.
I'm going to give it to Ellen Burstyn. There was a reason why she was nominated for an Oscar for this, and it's a fantastic performance by her. The idea of this kind of lonely old lady is not really that hard to understand, and to understand somebody who's just trying to find that second, almost that third or fourth win in life when people are expecting you to grow old and die, basically, because that's what
it's not a midlife crisis. It's more like a
whenever you hear somebody of a certain age, you kind of just assume, oh, okay, well, you get to grow old now and you get to die, and it's like for her, she didn't want that. She wanted that last little blessing to kind of show that, yeah, I still love my family, but I'm so lonely.
Where's my happiness coming from? Yeah,
exactly. I'm getting nothing out of my life right now. Right. So I needed something. Unfortunately, it was in the worst possible place it could have possibly been. So yeah, Ellen Burstyn.
That full word.
There's so many of them. Keith David.
I like you, David, too.
I know, and I can't even really fault him because I think the role is at least decently written for him. But I'm gonna give it to Keith David. God, dude, you're an absolute monster. That's all I can really say. You're a monster.
Yeah.
You know exactly where all of the stuff goes to, and yeah, you're a monster.
Where the hell was I?
Cut that out.
Cut that out.
God, please put some happiness in this movie somewhere. But
where?
Exactly. You can't put happiness in this movie somewhere. In that case, I can't cut anything out. This is an hour and 40 minutes that you feel every minute of that movie, and yet you in some ways you can't take your eyes off of it.
Wow. Does it? Do I dare say it doesn't hold up?
Yeah, it does. It does, because this is still something that's affecting us 20 years later. This is
Yes.
still something that's been affecting us since the 70s, and it's going to continue to affect us, and it's just a way of life now. Doesn't mean I necessarily like it. Doesn't necessarily mean that this is something that I want. You could show this movie 20 years from now, and somebody will be able to take something away from this movie. You know, whether it's a style thing, whether it's the music, or whether it's the story. This movie probably could have been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. That's how good it is. But my God, I can't recommend you watching it.
Oh man. And iconic scene.
Oh God, I don't know if there is one, because the entire movie kind of has it, but it has to be the ending scene. It has to be all four of them in the fetal position in whatever circumstance that they're in, after everything that's happened to them up to that point, because you almost got to say, well, what next? For a person, for Sarah, for Sarah Goldfarb, her life is probably over. She's probably catatonic for the rest of her life. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
for Tyrone, there may be a road of redemption there. You know, for Harry, he's always going to have this bitter regret of how he could have stopped this all along. And for Marion, she's likely dead in the next 3 to 5. I'm being honest. She's likely dead in the next 3 to 5.
Mm.
You know, God, who's getting that guy award?
I'm gonna give my that guy award to Tyrone. Simply because we spoke about this earlier. I can honestly tell you, Marlon Wayans floored me with this performance, only because it was so unexpected from him, but yet he saw the challenge and he fucking delivered that shit, and I think he did a fantastic job.
Who's getting that chick award?
I'll give it to Connolly because I could. Oh Jesus! I'm trying to visualize what that room probably smelled like, ass to ass. Like what that room smell like? You know what I'm saying?
I don't want to think about that.
but also just like Marlon Wayans, man, she does a fantastic job, man. She really sells that pain. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely Connolly.
That full award.
I can't believe I'm gonna take yours. I'm gonna go keep David too. He's just you're a scum, bro. You are full blown scum.
Yeah. And oh man. So that full cut that out.
I have nothing to cut out.
Exactly. This is one of those movies that you would cut out a lot. I feel like this is one of those movies that you probably cut out like 75% of it, and it changes the entire landscape of the movie. Also,
I feel like when you cut one thing, you're cutting the whole movie.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Just don't watch the movie, basically.
Exactly.
Does it hold up?
It does, because it's very much effective every time you watch it. Every time you watch it, it's still very much effective. Like the genuine reaction to certain events in the movie still sting when it needs to sting. Yep, it holds up.
And finally, iconic scene.
Ass to ass. No. Iconic scene for me. Oh fuck. Yeah, it would be that. The combination of the ass to ass with Bernstein's going through what she's going through. Marlon's doing the churning of pudding, and the whole layout is just a disturbing combination of scenes kind of put together. Just some really eerie music in the background. So I think the way that's put together is pretty dope. It's horrifying, but dope.
All right, let's get into some quick hits so we can get to this Laker game.
Yeah, I'm so ready for the Laker game. Quick hits. Let me see. Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. So quick hits. Boom, here we go. Darren Aronofsky shot the film like a hip-hop montage, a sequence of extremely short shots to get the sense of overwhelming addiction and loss of control. An average 100-minute film contains 600 to 700 cuts. This one contains over 2,000.
At around 44 minutes, during Ellen Burstyn's impassioned monologue about how it feels to be old, cinematographer Matthew Labotkiw accidentally let the camera drift off target. When director Aronofsky called cut and confronted him about it, he realized the reason Labotic had let the camera drift was because he had been crying during the take and fogged up the camera's eyepiece. And this was the take they used in the final piece.
Moses is real, bro. Director Darren Aronofsky asked Jared Leto and Marlon Wayans to avoid sex and sugar for a period of 30 days in order to better understand an overwhelming craving.
The Lux Aeterna portion of the music, composed by Clint Mansell for Requiem of a Dream, has often been used in many other contexts, such as trailers for Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, Da Vinci Code, I Am Legend, Man on Fire, Sunshine, etc. Soundtracks for video games like Assassin's Creed, and background music for TV programs and advertisement. It's been so commonly used as promotional and or entrance music for many different college and professional sports teams, including Notre Dame, Missouri State, Boston Celtics, VCU, University of Alabama, Bowdoin College football teams, Arsenal Football Club, and the England Rugby Union team.
All right, my final one. The word heroin is never actually said by any of the characters in the film.
My final one. Marlon Wayans was initially hesitant to accept the role of Tyrone, thinking the role to be stereotypical on paper. It was only after watching Pi that he decided he would do anything to work with Darren Aronofsky. He's since called working on this film with Aronofsky one of the best experiences of his career.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would say don't watch this movie.
Don't ever watch it.
But for an undeniable wake-up call, watch it once.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yep.
It's a movie we can't recommend to you, but at the same time, it may be one of the most important movies for you to watch.
Danger Neff, where can they find you, buddy?
You can always find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at David Danger Neff. I'm the co-host here at Back to the Classics. Make sure you check us out every Sunday for Fireside Chats, as that's been going on now for the better part of the last month. I have a new setup, finally, with an actual decent tripod setup for it. So you're not just going to get it strictly off my phone. I'm going to get some better lighting so you can see more of my white ass. So enjoy that. Still working on some ideas on where else I'd like to kind of take that. Again, this may only be a temporary thing, but I'm kind of having fun with it. And I'd like to see it continue in some format. My guy, Jay Alonso, where can they find you?
Right now, you're watching the Laker game. Go Lakers! But at official Jay Alonso on Instagram and on Twitter. Of course, Jay Alonso on Facebook. Of course, the Bachelor Classics Movie Talk page and Movie Talk group are on Facebook. Go ahead, jump in there and join the conversation. Of course, follow us at BTTC Podcast. And I think that about wraps it up for us, Brody.
That's right. Next week, we are covering something much lighter, thankfully. And we are going to have a guest on next week. He's been on the show before. It will only be him. It will not be him and his partner. I'm excited. He's a good buddy of mine. So I'm excited to kind of see where this will all kind of go. It's a fun movie for sure. So be sure to check us out this Thursday for this drop, and then the upcoming Thursday for the upcoming movie.
All right. With that being said, this is Back to Classics. I'm your guy, Jay Alonso. With me, of course, is
Danger Neff.
We will see you folks next week. Go Lakers.
Go Lakers. Go votes. You have.
Yeah. Go vote. Please go vote.
Go vote. Open early voting here in Nevada happens October 17th and will run pretty much through the rest of the month. So make sure you check out your local polling places and please go vote. Preferably Democratic, but at this point, I don't care. Please go vote.
Just vote. Fuck it.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.